Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 17 of Play by Play, the daily wrestling podcast with me, Atif Nawaz. And sadly, it's just me, Atif Nawaz. Arman Kirmani is not here with me today. He's actually traveling. He's going to be shooting a big movie project again very, very soon. He's a very busy working actor, and I'm very jealous of him for that reason. But hey, I guess that leaves the podcast to me today. And we're going to be talking about loads of interesting things. I'll tell you what we're going to talk about right after I thank our wonderful partners at eWrestlingNews.com. eWrestling News is a fantastic website that amalgamates wrestling news from around the world. People can contribute to it. There's also loads of articles and features on there that you should check out. And of course, it's got links to each and every play-by-play episode that's ever been recorded. There's 16 of them before today, so make sure you go and check those out if you've not heard them already. Right. And also, big shout out to topropepress.com as well. Those guys are good friends of ours, and they have a fantastic website. They've even got our banner on the side of their website, so make sure you check that out. Top Rope Press, great guys. Right, ladies and gentlemen, today's show, we're going to be talking about Daniel Bryan, specifically what next for Daniel Bryan now that it looks like he's almost definitely going to be out of the World Championship picture at WrestleMania. What we're going to speculate a little bit. Well, I'm going to speculate a little bit about what I think he might end up doing at WrestleMania, what I would like to see him doing at WrestleMania and beyond. Now that WWE look like they've committed to Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania. Of course, there's still loads of time for that to change as well. And also, I'm going to tell you, after promising it to you yesterday, I'm going to tell you all about my chat with Bobby Lashley, who's I'm very happy to say is now a friend of mine, and he actually recorded a little video for us. So if you're on the Facebook page, if you've liked the Play-by-Play Facebook page, you can already see Bobby Lashley giving us a shout out, which is very, very cool. And he's got the big heavy TNA World Heavyweight Championship with him as well. It's a very heavy belt, I've got to tell you. It looks, they make it look effortless, but these new belts are gigantic. Anyway, let's start the show then by talking about Daniel Bryan. Like I've already I've been vocal about my displeasure about the way Daniel Bryan was booked at the Royal Rumble. I wasn't insistent on him winning the Rumble. I would have liked to see him win the Rumble, but I don't have a problem with Reigns winning. I didn't like, obviously, the way that all went down, but now that it's all gone down and we're trying to move past it, where do I see Daniel Bryan going next? And I talked to Arman about this briefly earlier as well, and Arman reckons that Daniel Bryan is now going to end up in a feud with Dolph Ziggler, which sounds kind of exciting on paper. It's going to be a match that I joked it would be for the unofficial Make the Internet Happy Championship. But I mean, it's going to be great in the ring. It would be a great match. The original plan was surely for Daniel Bryan to take on Sheamus, which was actually the original plan last year before they inserted Daniel Bryan into the World Championship main event, the triple threat match. And again, there's some people who believe there will be a triple threat match still this year, and Daniel Bryan will find his way in that main event. But, I mean, assuming that WWE actually does a good job building this match, there's so many things they can still do to make Reigns versus Brock Lesnar interesting. And I think they made a good effort. I think Arman and I were both in agreement that the Monday Night Raw that was shot from WWE headquarters, that Reigns looked about as good as he has done so far. So he's already showing good signs of improvement. It's possible that this could lead to something interesting at the very least. Anyway, so where does that leave Daniel Bryan? He's kind of the people's champion. He's the most over person in the company by far, I would say. He's selling great merchandise. He's doing good numbers. A lot of people, Wade Keller was talking, he was very vocal about in his support for Daniel Bryan, and he was bewildered by the fact that WWE wouldn't want to milk him. But I don't think he necessarily needs to be in the world title picture to be, to be in a significant spot at WrestleMania. Now, I had a thought about where I'd like to see Daniel Bryan going at WrestleMania and beyond. And stay with me, Daniel Bryan fans, because you're going to get very upset about what I'm about to say. You're not going to like this instantly, but give it a chance. Let me finish my thought, okay, guys, before we turn this off and just completely throw us out of your lives forever, okay? I think Daniel Bryan would make an excellent Intercontinental Champion. Get your hate out there. I'm going to give you 3 seconds to get all your swear words and all your abuse out of the way, okay? 1, 2, 3. Let me explain myself, okay? Daniel Bryan would make an excellent Intercontinental Champion because, as we've discussed on a previous podcast, Arman and I, we both agree that the Intercontinental Championship has been devalued so much over the years. I mean, it's hard to remember who held the championship when. There was a time when you could tell who was, you could tell exactly who the champion was in which month, in which year, but you can't do that so much. Certainly not for the past, well, we could say 10 years. And both, again, we reached the consensus on this podcast that the devaluing of the Intercontinental Championship started in sort of 2002 after the brand split, and then there was a new World Championship as well, which was originally the WCW World Championship. You had the WCW US Championship as well. You had a cruiserweight belt for a while, light heavyweight, European. There were so many championships in play at the Intercontinental Championship, which had once been one of only 3 and then one of 4, was now just one of like 10. So it's very difficult to build the prestige of a title when there's so many of them around. I think even though they've unified the World Championship now, there's only one major World Heavyweight Championship in WWE, it's a good chance for them to bring it back, but they just haven't focused on it. Too often, we've seen the Intercontinental Champion losing in non-title matches, in just nondescript feuds, the belt changing hands too many times. And I would like to see someone who has main event credibility, which Daniel Bryan does. Daniel Bryan was in the main event. Sorry, Daniel Bryan won the main event of WrestleMania 30. I would like to see him take the Intercontinental Championship and hold it for like a year, a really, really long period of time. And I'd like to see him use that as like the de facto championship of SmackDown and defend it every week on SmackDown. Make it the Workers' Championship again, the belt that every guy who aspires to hold that World Championship again holds. And it's fine. A lot of people will say, well, why are you demoting him from the world title picture to the Intercontinental Championship picture? Hey, look, I'm not saying that the Intercontinental Championship should be, I'm not saying Daniel Bryan should be demoted. I think he should be given the task because of his incredible popularity. He should be given the task to reignite the emotion, the passion, the significance of the Intercontinental Championship. It would be great if fans rallied behind him. And let's talk about New Japan Pro Wrestling, okay? They actually managed to headline a pay-per-view with an Intercontinental Championship match. Think about that for a second. The Wrestle Kingdom 8 was headlined by an Intercontinental Championship match. The World Heavyweight Championship match was the semi-main event. It was before the main event. And that was done by fan choice as well. I can't remember any time that the WWE Championship was defended with the Intercontinental Championship headlining. In fact, the last time I do remember was SummerSlam 1992. And who was in that match? 2 of the best workers of all time, the British Bulldog Davey Boy Smith and Bret the Hitman Hart. So I think that kind of backs my point. If you give your championship, and again, some people will say that was before Bret won the world title, but yeah, that's fine. That's kind of the way. That was the linear structure that was taken to it. Over time, you can restore that prestige and you can make that championship, the Intercontinental Championship, a stepping stone to the World Heavyweight Championship. But right now, it just needs a big overhaul. That whole process needs an overhaul. It needs a big name attached to it. That name has to make that championship. And I think Daniel Bryan, he would be a great name to try and make the Intercontinental Championship a great belt again. He already talked about in a recent interview, Daniel Bryan talked about wanting to be the face of SmackDown. And if you've got champions like Brock Lesnar, I know we all assume he'll lose the championship at WrestleMania or at the very least Extreme Rules or wherever else. I mean, he's going to lose the belt eventually to Roman Reigns or to Seth Rollins, whomever. But if you assume Brock Lesnar is going to be your champion, or you're going to have a champion that's not going to be on every show, he's not going to be headlining every pay-per-view, how great would it be to have a secondary title like the Intercontinental Championship that had the kind of significance where you could credibly put that match as the main event of a pay-per-view? I think if you have someone like Daniel Bryan in there, and then you have these younger wrestlers from NXT coming through, Daniel Bryan versus Adrian Neville for the World Heavyweight Championship, I don't know if you might, I'm going to be honest, I don't know if you'll ever see that, but you might see, you'd be more likely to see with the WWE scheme of bookings, you'd be more likely to see Daniel Bryan versus Adrian Neville for the Intercontinental Championship. Could you imagine how many match of the year contenders would come out of the Intercontinental Championship matches, and that in turn would make that belt something people value again? It's a very, very, I think it's a no-brainer. You got to attach a main event talent to the World Heavyweight Championship, and it's got to be somebody who has main event credibility and also is a good worker. Seth Rollins is another one, but right now it looks like he's destined to cash in the Money in the Bank and become world champion at some point, and I wouldn't want him to think he's been demoted after his incredible performance at the Royal Rumble. I mean, he was the MVP of the night, it has to be said. I love Brock Lesnar, don't get me wrong. I mean, Brock Lesnar is money. The minute he's on television, I've not heard anybody say a bad thing about the way he carries himself. He's a star all the way. But Seth Rollins was the star of the Royal Rumble night for me. And as Wade Keller said, if you had to cut two of the three Shield members, two of the three former Shield members, Seth Rollins would probably be the last man standing. And that's a bitter pill for a lot of Dean Ambrose and a lot of Roman Reigns fans to swallow, but it's true. And I can see that. I can completely and totally see that. So that's where I'd like to see Daniel Bryan go next. I'd like to see him pursue the Intercontinental Championship. It doesn't have to be at WrestleMania. It could be in a high card match at WrestleMania. And we've talked a little bit about The Undertaker's role at WrestleMania as well. It's expected that The Undertaker will return at WrestleMania for a match with Bray Wyatt, but there's no reason why Daniel Bryan couldn't be in a match with The Undertaker. I guess it would be a little bit difficult because of face-heel dynamics, but it would be a heck of a match, that's for sure. Sting looks set for his match with Triple H. The World Heavyweight Championship match is likely to be, well, it's almost certain to be Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns. Seth Rollins is currently, I think the current plan for Seth Rollins is for him to feud with Randy Orton, but we're not quite sure how that's going to go. And John Cena is supposed to be in a match with Rusev, which has now been pulled forward. So Rusev versus John Cena is now being advertised for Fastlane as the main event. So I'd be surprised if a return match between the two was featured at WrestleMania. Is that what they're going to give John Cena this year? I don't know. I mean, John Cena is Teflon in WWE. Nothing can really hurt him for me, even if he has to be in a return match at WrestleMania. It's probably not the end of the world, but Cena Bryan, maybe. I don't know. Rusev Bryan, maybe. I don't know. They'll have something big planned for Bryan all the same. I'm absolutely sure of it. They wouldn't waste him. But long term, I think you could do a 2-in-1 there. You could put Bryan in a very meaningful role as a meaningful Intercontinental Champion, and eventually you could bring him back into the world title picture. I just get the feeling that the WWE top brass feel like he's had his moment last year. They might have felt let down that he got injured. It took him a very long time to recover, and that's not a knock on Bryan. That's just kind of compared to people like John Cena and Triple H who've had well-documented recoveries from injury that have been ahead of schedule. They may have harbored some resentment against Daniel Bryan for not recovering as quick as they did. There was that whole debacle on Total Divas about Bryan using herbal medicine. I don't know how much of that show is scripted, how much isn't, but all of it is brilliant, honestly. It's just so entertaining. If you don't watch Total Divas, check it out. So that's my 2 cents on Daniel Bryan. Yesterday, in fact, the day before yesterday, I had the chance to meet, no, sorry, it was yesterday, beg your pardon. I had the chance to meet Bobby Lashley, who is currently the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. I can tell you he is a lovely guy, very, very cool guy. He'd been doing media appearances all day, and I met him at his hotel suite in London, where he was meeting some press-type people, media, magazines, and podcasters like myself. So I got a chance to meet him and chat with him for about half an hour. We talked about all sorts of things. He had very heavy conversations with some of the other interviewers. And I've got to say, if you ever get a chance, everybody listening to this podcast, if you ever get a chance to interview a professional wrestler, I mean, what are you really going to gain by asking them interviews from their Wikipedia page or asking them questions that could easily be answered by looking at their Wikipedia page? How did you get into the business? What's your favorite match? How tall are you? How much time do you spend in it? I mean, these things are so generic and boring, and I'm sure he's talked about them in countless interviews. I couldn't believe that so many respected journalists that were coming in and out of that room would ask him these kind of questions. So, I mean, we talked a little bit about his diet, but mostly we kind of bantered about his views on other wrestlers, which I think are more interesting. The most interesting thing for me that came out of my chat with Bobby Lashley was his strong desire to fight Brock Lesnar. Yes, you heard that right. Bobby Lashley, the TNA Impact World Heavyweight Champion, desperately wants to fight Brock Lesnar, the WWE World Heavyweight Champion. And crucially, he doesn't care whether it's a pro wrestling match, an MMA match, a chess match, he said at one point. He just wants to face off against Brock Lesnar. And he's never even met the guy before. He said he's never been face-to-face with Brock Lesnar, but he would love to fight him. One person he didn't want to fight, he mentioned in his chat, was CM Punk. Interesting. He said that he suspected CM Punk would be incredibly successful in MMA because Punk, in his words, is a successful guy. He reckons anybody who's successful in one field of life will find a way to be successful in another. It's a formula. It's the way you approach something. It's the drive that you have. But he said, despite the fact that he thinks Punk is going to be successful in UFC, he's not particularly interested in trying to fight him. It might be a weight thing because Bobby Lashley is a legit heavyweight. I think he fights at about 220 pounds or 240 pounds, something like that. And it is obviously a bulky, muscly guy. Punk is a bit weedier, even though he's quite tall. He's not going to be fighting in the very top divisions. But even so, he wasn't particularly interested in fighting him, but he wished him all the best. And he said it's going to be a sellout. So he was very, very supportive of CM Punk. He had some very kind things to say about Bobby Roode, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Kurt Angle. And he also made an interesting comparison between Dixie Carter and Vince McMahon. His implication really was that Vince McMahon wears so many hats, it's very difficult for him to have a personal relationship with each of his talents. Whereas he reckons Dixie Carter does that. She takes the time to know about all of her talents. He even said that Dixie Carter is actually she even helps people pull. She even helps wrestlers in the bar when they're trying to hook up. I found that quite amusing. And obviously, you got to take that with a pinch of salt, because obviously Bobby's not working for Vince McMahon anymore. He's working for Dixie Carter, so he's got to be a little bit nicer about her than he is about Vince. He did, however, say he's not got anything negative to say about Vince. He always enjoyed his experiences there. He referred to himself as one of Vince's guys, so that's a very cool thing. And there was no bitterness there. I was really pleased that he was very happy with where he was in life, even though he had a very, very long day. He'd just flown in the morning. He'd done media interviews back to back. He was still very personable, very happy. So I've got nothing but positive vibes for Bobby Lashley. Nothing but love for Bobby Lashley. Well done, mate. I can't wait to see you in action. If you're in London, then you can check out TNA Impact Wrestling. They're going to be at Wembley Arena in London next week, Saturday. And if you want to see my full interview with Bobby Lashley, you can check that out on YouTube. It's on Media Spotlight UK's page on YouTube. So check that out. Right, that was Bobby Lashley. I talked a little bit about Daniel Bryan, and of course I'm going to answer yesterday's question of the day. We asked you the Dean Douglas Award question of the day, and that was Roman Reigns' father. Who is Roman Reigns' father? He was in a tag team with a chap called Sika. What was his father's name? Any guesses? Any guesses? Anyone at all? Last minute? Last minute? No? Well, his father's name was Afa. Sika, sorry, his father's name is born to his father's name was Sika, right? His tag team partner was Afa. So Sika is his father, and they're all from the Anoya family, which has such illustrious members as The Rock, Yokozuna, Rikishi, or you might remember him as Fatu, Umaga, the Usos, who are currently on television as well. So a lot of people from that Samoan clan on television at the moment. But Roman Reigns' father, and the correct answer is, of course, Sika, and nobody got that right. I think you guys were all distracted because Rahman and I had a very fiery chat yesterday. You can go back to episode 16 and check that out. We had a very, very, very fiery chat, arguing, and we continued that after the podcast as well on WhatsApp and email and phone calls, and we find a way to argue about everything somehow. So, and I'm going to be speaking to him even while he's traveling through Europe for his film project. So I'm going to make sure we chat away, and I'll make sure I represent some of his views across as we continue with this podcast. But yeah, so that's mostly done today. Don't worry, tomorrow, boys and girls, tomorrow, I'm probably not going to be able to get a hold of Arman, but I will get a hold of Arman. Now, that's a bit cryptic. I know that's a bit cryptic, but what I mean by that is tomorrow, my 8-year-old nephew, whose name is also Arman, is going to be joining me on the podcast, okay? He's going to be giving me that 8-year-old's viewpoint. Now, if you listened yesterday, you'll know that Arman talked about younger viewers identifying maybe differently with the product. Maybe they read into the Royal Rumble ending a little bit differently. Maybe they perceive the two big guys as a bigger threat. So I'm quite interested in picking the brains of an 8-year-old wrestling fan and seeing how he responds to the product and how different that is to maybe myself, a 30-year-old wrestling fan. So that's something to look forward to tomorrow. We're going to have one Arman replacing another. Oh, hey, guys and girls, make sure you get in touch. Make sure you stay interactive with us. Email us questions at playbyplay123.co.uk. You can also tweet us at PlayByPlay123. You can like our Facebook page, which, as I mentioned, has got videos from Bobby Lashley and loads of other things going on. So you can like us on Facebook. It's facebook.com/playbyplaywrestling. Okay, that's all of our information, and that's our show. Episode 17 is about to hit the mat. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you give us your thoughts, share it with your friends, show it some love, spread it around, spread it around. We want loads of people to hear Play by Play, the daily wrestling podcast, because we do this podcast every day for all of you. Hope you enjoyed it. It's been fun, From me, Atif Nawaz, from my absentee partner, Arman Kirmani, we wish you goodbye.